All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jan Brito. My business partner, Laura Quigley, is here, and Jesse Belcher is our assistant who is running the slides for us. We are Brito Associates of Compass, so we are residential realtors, but we formed a division of our team in 2020 called Capital Senior Solutions that specializes in working with older adults and their families making late in life move transitions. And we do that through education and advocacy. I know there are some familiar names signed up for today, so you're aware that we do seminars on a regular basis. And now it's about 3 or 4 a month on different topics. But we wanted to present this one because we get so many questions about what's a CCRC, what's a life plan community, what's a nursing home, what's a facility. You know, there's some terminology too that we don't use anymore because it's not your grandpa's senior living community. You know what I mean? So we've put together this presentation called Retirement Communities 101. It's going to break all that down for you. What is it that gives Laura and I the qualifications to speak to these topics? Just briefly, we spent about a year going through a very intense, almost graduate level course through the Seniors Real Estate Institute in Oklahoma. And we left that training with a designation called Certified Senior Housing Specialist. There are only 113 of us in the US, and with 10,000 people turning 65 every day, we need a lot more. But what makes us different is we get involved in the process years ahead of when someone might be ready to sell. So we come in early as a resource to connect people with whatever they might need, be it estate liquidation, move managers, attorneys, financial advisors, et cetera. We then went on to get certified as senior downsizing coaches because I'm sure many of you on this call today have thought about it, but don't really know what to do or when to do it and have millions of questions. And we can coach people through the process as well. So I won't bore you with the other certifications. I just wanted to emphasize our focus on working with older adults. So we can go to the next slide. And welcome to Retirement Communities 101. So the first step in this process is to create a plan. And it's important to create that plan while you still have the ability to do so for yourself. You don't want to wait till a crisis occurs and have other people make decisions on your behalf. And, you know, ideally, you don't want to burden your family with something like that. It's important for you to have the plan in place so that should you become disabled in any fashion, they're able to carry out your wishes. So one of the things I did want to mention is that, later you really have to realize that later in life, you might need to prepare for the likelihood that you will need help, whether it's medically, physically, cognitively. So don't be in denial and put this to the side. Have a conversation with your children, your loved ones, your professional advisors, while you still can, about your late in life wishes for living arrangements, care possibilities, and financing. So let's go on to the next slide. So here are some questions you want to think about before you start the move process. What type of lifestyle do you need or want now and in the future? So if you're living in a large 5-bedroom home, for instance, do you really need that much space? That's typically the reason people decide to move. It's too much house to take care of. So are you willing to go to a condo lifestyle? Are you willing to explore senior community options? Obviously, you'll have to look at your financial situation, and we'll talk about long-term care insurance and some other aspects further into the presentation. And then think about what's really necessary to prepare for a future move. I'll give you a case in point. I'm working with a couple now who just relocated from Texas to downsize to be near their grandkids. They thought they wanted to move to a condo, but they're finding that there are not always elevators in condos, and there's lots of steps involved. So when they look at it as their forever home, they're perfectly healthy now in their late 70s, but they're thinking, in 5 or 10 years, am I going to be able to climb these steps with grandkids and groceries and everything? So you have to really think about what's going to be best for you in the long run. We can move on now. Okay, so there's lots of different options for senior living. And Laura's going to take over in a few slides and go into greater detail, but just an overview of what's out there. You could downsize to a condo, a townhome, an apartment. Many of you are maybe aware of the village concept. It's all around the country, but in Montgomery County alone, there are over 26 villages. And those are communities that are geographically centered. So, for instance, there's Chevy Chase, Bethesda, Kensington, they're all over. And they're not only residents of the communities, but also volunteers that help people with their needs, whether it be rides to doctor's appointments, grocery shopping, companionship, technical help, that kind of thing. And then there's planned adult communities, otherwise known as 55 and over communities. We'll go into a little more detail later.
Hey, Jan, I can jump in. I can jump in now if you'd like.
Okay.
Because I'm going to go into such great detail on these that I've got separate slides. So why don't move the slide yet, Jess, but I always joke about this slide. You may have seen it on other presentations that we've done, is this woman and her look of confusion, because that's how I think a lot of our clients feel initially. Like, look at this list and you say to yourself, I don't know what these mean and I don't know where I fit. And then this quote that it can be a maze out there when it comes to researching. So today, hopefully, we're going to take some of that confusion out for you. This is going to be highly educational, and I'll be talking a lot about the different options. So feel free to put questions in chat. We may wait till the end to go through them just because there's so much information, but we do want everyone to leave here and feel more comfortable about what all these options are. So Jesse, you can go to the next one. Okay. So the first thing, and Jan mentioned this, moving to a senior community may not be what you desire or may not be what is the best option for you. So there are definitely, let's say, for example, you are in that larger home and you don't feel safe aging in place in that home because of maybe the stairs or the steep driveway. There are so many local options that can help us. Like there's apartments that are, like there are actually apartment communities that really are catering to older adults. There's condos, as Jan mentioned, there's townhomes that you could move to something like that and continue to age in place in that community. So basically moving from that large space, to a more manageable space. And then as Jan mentioned, the villages. So villages is a grassroots movement of neighbors helping neighbors. And there probably is one in your neighborhood. As Jan mentioned, there's over 26 just in Montgomery County. There's many in DC, all over Virginia. So let's say, for example, you wanted to volunteer now, you could help your neighbors who are aging in place and then see how it works. And maybe that would be an option for you. There's also small residential care homes. And I gave some examples of Montgomery County. These are licensed homes and they offer different levels of services, but they're very small. Like, for example, the JK House of Grace in Silver Spring, there are 4 homes and each has about 8 rooms. So if you wanted to be more in a home environment, there are some of those options too. There's also Eden Homes, and then Alfred House has multiple options throughout Montgomery County. So those are sort of your alternatives. And then we'll go talk about 55 and over. So 55 and over, you probably have all heard of them. It's like Yahoo! We're going to go have fun. It's like going back to college without, actually, it's more like going on spring break. 55 and over, there, active senior living. There is no, I'm going to do the downsides first, just so you know, there's no medical services provided at a 55 and over community. Typically, there's no healthcare type services. You could bring, something into your home if you needed help, but that would be your responsibility. 55 and over are for, healthy adults who want to live in an environment with other people of their same age, but not have the worries about maintenance. Like, you don't have to worry about your yard. You don't have to worry about interior maintenance. You don't even have to change a light bulb. That's part of living in that community. And I say kid-free because the requirement of living in a 55 and over, if you're married, you have a spouse, one of you has to meet the age requirement to live in the community. But there's all sorts of, there's group activities, there's clubs, there could be a pool, theater rooms, pickleball courts. It's just people who want an active lifestyle. They want to, again, own their unit, own their type of property. And it could be all different styles, from an apartment to a garden style home. So locally, and I'm going to give you examples for each one of these categories, but just so you know, we're not endorsing them. We're giving them to you as an example so that you may have friends, family who live in these communities and you always wondered what it was all about. We're always available one-on-one to talk to you about your specific needs. Jan and I help people figure this out. We are licensed realtors. So in the end, we help you sell your home to pay for all this, but we tour with people and we help people with these types of conversations to figure out what am I looking for. So we can go to the next slide because
Wait, I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention something about the examples that we had there, and to mention that we are sorely lacking in 55 and over communities in Montgomery County, Maryland. We know of Leisure World in Silver Spring. They have a sister community out in Loudoun County. The Woodlands of Urbana up north on 270 was recently built in the last couple of years. I just spoke with the sales rep this week, though, and right now all they have left are single family homes, but they're villas. So they should be, they're single level. And then there's a new one that's still under construction up that way called the Village at Cabin Branch. And I believe those are townhomes as well as single families. So the options are very few when it comes to 55 and over communities here in our local area. Sorry, Laura, thanks for letting me throw that in.
Oh, no, thank you, because I had missed that part. And there's options throughout the country for 55 and over. Even in this area, if you went to Howard County or out into Virginia, there's more options, but sort of close in DC, Jan's right, there's not so much. All right, so we did 55 and over, and then the next level is independent living. Now, I've chosen to sort of do these step by step. I kind of chosen from like a don't need any care to the most care. But as I go through it, oftentimes these are bundled. You may have a bundled community where there's independent living with assisted or assisted living with memory care. So I'm treating them as separate today, but just know that it might be a bundle that you might see when you go. So independent living. In order to move into independent living, you must be able to live independently and to be able to care for yourself to qualify. Usually there is some sort of qualification medical exam that takes place. These types of communities might be a rental, or they may be that you've purchased. The residence is yours. Come and go as you please. If you want to lock the door and go to Florida for a few months, you don't have to worry about anything. You have to worry about any kind of maintenance or that. The difference between independent and 55 and over is that they typically offer meal plans. So your apartment or condo will have a full kitchen in independent living, but you can choose to use it or not. If you're like me, I'm pretty much done with cooking. So I would take advantage of the meal plans and I would make sure that we had dinner every night and I didn't have to cook. You can still drive if you want, and there's parking spaces or parking lots provided, but they also offer transportation for those who maybe are no longer comfortable driving and need to go to the grocery store or need to go to a medical appointment. The same thing in terms of lots of social activities, clubs, excursions, trips. The other thing they offer kind of above 55 and over would be maid services, cleaning services. Typically it's part of the program. So you pay, typically in independent living, you are paying, whether you've owned or you've rented, you're probably paying some sort of monthly fee that would include if you've decided to get meals and the maid service. One thing that people really like is they can be pet friendly. But that's a question you have to ask if that's important to you. And you have to be able to care for your pet. So kind of locally here, true independent would be 5-star premium residence of Chevy Chase, Fox Hill Residences. Over in Kensington Park, they have an independent building for independent living. Modena, and then the Carnegie, which is not opened yet. It's being built. It's right up to 70. So hopefully those examples will kind of sit with you.
Laura, I just wanted to mention when it comes to pets in these communities, there is a service that provides pet walking assistance for folks who live in these communities. Remember, we met her at Olney. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the company, but I'll see if I can find that.
I think it's called A Walk in the Park.
Yes, that sounds like the right name.
Yeah, so if you got to the point that you needed that, you would have it. Okay, let's talk about assisted living. Sorry. So assisted living is that next level of care. Assisted living is, there's a monthly fee and it's state licensed. 55 and over and independent living are not licensed by the state, okay? Assisted living has to be, and there are typically 3 levels of care within assisted living: a low, a moderate, and a high level of care. So when you're talking to assisted living communities, it's really important to be very clear on what level of attention you need and what caregiving you need. Assisted living is private pay. Some people believe it might be covered by your medical insurance. It's not covered by medical insurance. However, if you have long-term care insurance, part of the services may be covered, because long-term care insurance covers those activities of daily living. And so assisted living is when you've gotten to the point where you need a little bit of extra help, particularly with these activities of daily living. I'm not gonna assume that you all know what those are, so I'm just gonna take a minute and explain the activities of daily living. There's 6 of them, and it's bathing, dressing, toileting, transferring. Transferring is, for example, getting in and out of bed, or if you're wheelchair bound, getting in and out of a wheelchair. Eating and continence. So if you or a loved one is at a point in your life where this is the kind of care they need, assisted living would probably be what you're looking for. You still have privacy and your independence. You can come and go as you please, but assisted living does not have full kitchens. Typically, all your meals are going to be provided. You can have a little refrigerator in there for snacks if you want, but you're going to have 3 meals a day. As I mentioned, the care levels, it's not major medical care. It's minor medical care. It's medicine maintenance, that type of thing. And there's a monthly fee, but there may be additional fees depending on the type of care that you need. So back to the point, it's really important to ask the questions of what they in a detailed way of what they provide. If you need greater assistance above what they can provide, you often can bring that in yourself. So let's say, for example, you or your loved one, you need an aide, like somebody by your side. And this happened in my family. My mother-in-law was wheelchair bound, but she kept forgetting that she couldn't get out of the wheelchair by herself to go to the restroom. So we needed to bring in an aide. And we were allowed to do that into the assisted living, but we paid for that. So this person was with her about 8 hours a day, and it was to keep her safe.
Can I bring something up here, Laura? In terms of home health care and bringing in someone like Laura's mentioning to a senior community where you may be living, it's important to note, if you have long-term care insurance, that won't cover the housing piece, but it will cover this part of it. If you are fortunate enough to have such a policy, it can come in very handy in these situations, save you a lot of money.
Correct. But there is a process that you go through in terms of eligibility under your long-term care plan. So it's important to have studied that out and figured out the timing before those benefits that will kick in. So locally, we have a lot of options. I mean, this does even scratch the surface, I believe, of our, assisted living options, but Victory Housing has multiple communities throughout the area. Brightview has communities, all over Maryland and Virginia. Brandywine in Potomac is relatively new, but Brandywine also just informed us that they've added a couple independent apartments to their office, their services. You have the Seneca, which is also fairly new up in Rockville, and then Sunrise. There's multiple Sunrise communities throughout the area. As this grows, as our needs grow, I think we will see more and more of these types of services. And let me jump back to Brightview. I'm sorry. There is one Brightview in Rockville, downtown Rockville, that has independent with assisted living. So, okay, so let's go on to the next level of care, which is skilled care. So, as you've seen, I'm kind of going down that ladder of what types of care that we might need. So skilled care is, people would traditionally call this a nursing home. It's state licensed, it's 24-hour care, and it's typically for rehab and long-term care. So you're going to see all different ages of people in a skilled care community, because oftentimes, let's say a fall occurred and you were hospitalized, not quite ready to go home, but you need care to, the rehab, you would go to a skilled care community. But they also have the ability to stay if your level of care has gotten to the point where you need the skilled care. And this is where, your medical insurance will kick in to pay for some of this, part of this. Oftentimes when people have gotten to this point, they're looking at Medicaid type services, so that you can create a plan for your assets and your aging at the same time. That's a different seminar, but just wanted to let you know about that. So again, not age restricted. So around here, we've got Carriage Hill, Sacred Heart Home, and the ProMedical skilled nursing communities. There are more than this. This is just, again, some examples. So now I'm going to talk about memory care. We haven't talked about that. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, there might be bundles. You might have independent with assisted in the same community, or assisted with memory care, or all three, like in a bubble. So the need for memory care has grown significantly in the past 8 to 10 years. Memory care are state licensed and they offer 24-hour care. What I'm talking about in this situation is there are standalone communities that just focus on memory care. That's their specialty. There's no other offerings that they have in the community. They just have specialists helping people who have cognitive issues, memory issues. Locally, we have Artis Senior Living. They have 2 communities in Potomac and Olney. Arbor Place, there's Cedar Creek. And again, I mentioned Alfred House earlier. Alfred House has little independent communities and memory care type communities. So if your loved one is at the point where you believe that that's a level of care they need, I just wanted to make sure you knew that that does exist as a standalone. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about continuing care communities. So that's like the whole bubble, okay, that we just talked about. Like, these are communities. It can be called a life plan community or a continuing care community. And it's like the whole bubble of everything we just talked about in one place. So if you move into a continuing care community or a life plan community, you would stay there through the aging process. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but when we talk about the standalone communities, I always suggest to the people that we're working with is you have to think of a plan B. And what I mean by that is the plan B is if I'm in independent living, if I've got my apartment and I'm happy and I'm independent living, aging is inevitable. It's going to happen to all of us. So what is your plan for if you need further services? And you can certainly do it in any of the other communities that I've told you about, but you want to think about that up front and have an understanding of what that looks like from a care perspective and from a financial perspective, and obviously a timing perspective. So a continuing care community, as I mentioned, has everything on one campus. They typically require a sizable upfront investment. And when I say sizable, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, usually paying a large upfront fee. And when the time comes that you either no longer want to be in that community or you have passed, your estate gets a percentage of that fee back. Okay? And they typically get that fee back once the unit or apartment or whatever you're living in, they've now sold to another person to come in. So it's not an immediate, but it tends to happen pretty fast because most of these places have wait lists. So you're paying up front, and you'll get to pick the size, shape apartment you want. Or some of them have little villas or little cottages. Some are apartment buildings. Some are low-rise buildings. They may have all of those options on the campus. And so then you pick what you want, and then there's a monthly fee on top of that. And that comes based on level of care, where you are in that continuum of care. Or maybe you want to have maybe you've gone someplace where you've gotten a cottage that has a full kitchen, and you're not going to want to cook for a long time. So you may not want a meal plan, but they're always optioned. And sometimes you can just go to the local restaurant and pay, private pay. For some of these communities, you do have to come in at independent level. So if you wait too long, that option, that door might be closed to you. Not all of them, but some of them. They offer, this is where I'd say it's like going back to college, because you're on a campus and you've got meal plans and you can go on excursions, and there's fitness programs. Asbury Methodist has a rock climbing wall, all sorts of social activities without the stress. And everything is maintained for you, exterior maintenance, interior maintenance. So as you can see, there's a lot that I'm going to locally that are offered to us. We've got Riderwood, we've got Ingleside, King Farm, and Rock Creek, Maplewood Park Place. And I'm going to point them out because they are a little unique. At Maplewood Park Place, it's actually a co-op. So you actually purchase your unit at Maplewood, and it is your property. And when you no longer are going to be residing there, your estate, your family, then can sell that unit to a next prospective resident. You've got the Charles E. Smith communities. I should have mentioned this earlier too. Charles E. Smith is a continuing care community, but their independent living is a rental model. So that's a little unique about them. The Grandview, I think it's coming around 2025, Jan.
Yes.
I know
the first building, the independent living.
Independent living in 2025. And that will be a continuing care community over a matter of years. The Mather in Virginia, that's a continuing care community that's opening in early 2024. And Goodwin Living Communities, there's several of them in Virginia. So I've just talked a lot. Is there any chat things that we should address right now? Questions?
Yes, there is a question in the chat, but I wanted to bring up the waiting list that you mentioned. I can't tell you all how many clients we have that are on waiting lists for communities and have been waiting and waiting and waiting. So if you're even considering of moving to a senior community, start touring early. We mentioned early on that we get involved with our clients who will eventually sell their homes way early in the process, even going with you on tours to different communities, helping you with the questions to ask. Because this way, at least you know what's out there. And if you find a place that you know you're going to love, you can go ahead and get on the waiting list. It might take 1 or 2 years for it to open up, but at least you've got your plan. So I just wanted to mention that.
And I want to I'm sorry, I want to jump in on that too. And to be honest, we've got people that are on multiple waiting lists. Yeah. There usually is a financial obligation, could be like $1,000. I'm not sure, different ones have different, but it's refundable if you choose to go off the waiting list. And the other thing that's important to know is, let's say one of these communities calls you and says, we've got a place for you. You don't have to say yes. Mm-hmm. You can say no. You don't lose your place on the waiting list. Maybe the timing isn't right for you. Maybe you go look at the unit and you're like, it's too small, or it's too big, or I don't like the view. So I think to Jan's point, sooner rather than later than getting on a waiting list.
Yeah.
Because I know some of these right now are sold out and are on their waiting list into next year.
Yeah. And we've had people that were on the waiting list at Grandview, and while waiting, they'd realized they can't wait that long. So they've taken their name off the list and started looking elsewhere. So the question in the chat is, what is your opinion of the need to maintain long-term care insurance when deciding to move in a CCRC? I would say if you have that policy, never let it go, because the cost is so high now. And again, all long-term care policies are different in terms of what they cover and when it kicks in. So speak with your insurance rep about that. You really get into the nitty-gritty of your policy, but you definitely do not want to let that go, because if you're in independent living, for instance, in a CCRC and have not yet moved to assisted living, you just need a little bit of help. You don't want to pay the extra fee that assisted living would require. You can bring in a home health care aide using your long-term care insurance. So, Michael, did that answer your question? And if anybody else has any questions at this point, we'd be happy to entertain them.
I saw Lou had a question about the slides.
I responded that the recording will be on our seminars page at capitalseniorsolutions.com in the video library later today.
And we'll be sending a follow-up email to you just to get your thoughts, input on the presentation. And if you would like a copy of the slides, let us know then. It's a lot of slides. I don't want to send them out to everybody and inundate your email. But if it's somebody who really wants them, let us know, and we're happy to share them.
There is one other type of housing I wanted to throw in here. Has anybody ever heard of a NORC? NORC, naturally occurring retirement community. These tend to be condo buildings, typically, where it attracts an older adult. Some examples are in Montgomery County, at least, the Promenade on Pooks Hill Road. There's a ton of condos in Friendship Heights, and they do attract older adults in a lot of them, so much so that they've started a village within Friendship Heights, and it's all the condos in that area. So that's another option if you wanted to stay, independently living in a condominium. And again, if you've got the long-term care insurance, you can bring in home health care when you need it, or if you're in a position to private pay, there's of course that. Let me see. I think there might be a couple new things in the chat. Are there any sort of ratings or customer feedback for these communities? Well, as a matter of fact, we have that coming up on a slide here in a couple minutes, right, Laura? A site you can go to get ratings.
Well, you can easily get ratings on nursing homes for the federal government. And we do have a slide with all the different government resources for you to check into. But
I'm looking at one on Medicare.gov. I just pulled up one of the local rehab and healthcare centers here, and it gives information on health inspection, staffing, quality measures. You can view vaccination rates. You can view inspection details on fire safety and emergency preparedness. You can see if there have been any penalties, total number of beds, all sorts of information. So it's a great resource.
Okay, so I think we're ready for the next.
Okay, let me see. Long-term care insurance gives options, but at a cost. Yes, Michael, you are correct. Okay, so choosing your community. Again, you want to think about geography. Are you going to stay in your area? Are you going to relocate to another state to be near family? Do you want to stay in the same community and where your doctors are close by? If not, are you willing to find new hairdressers and doctors and all the other services that you have in your neighborhood now in your new community? Do keep in mind, however, that some of the CCRCs in particular have hair salons and so forth right there on campus, and you wouldn't even have to leave for things like that. And as Laura mentioned, the prices are going to vary. Some are rental models, some are purchase. Many do have entry fees. Some can be quite hefty. So you have to think about your financial situation. And if you don't have a financial advisor or haven't consulted with them recently, you probably want to start that conversation to see what your retirement savings looks like, any pension you might have. If you're a veteran, there's veteran aid and attendance that can assist with the costs. You also want to think about the type of support that's offered in the community, the amenities that are going to be attractive to you, and the services. In terms of the building, management, maintenance, the appearance of the place, it has to be attractive to you such that when you come home, you love where you live. You have to think about the people in the communities, the personality. Are you okay with pets being in the building or in the community? And then staff, skills, competency, character. Again, there's some information on care facilities on Medicare.gov. And then you might be able to just Google some communities and get third-party feedback. And then the competence, their inspections and training that they have. It's a pretty tightly regulated industry, but we all know that customer service varies from one situation to the next. So
before we move forward, the one thing I want to add is I equate this a lot like to when I toured colleges with my son. Like, go on tours. We can go with you, you can go alone, but go on tours. You're going to see what feels right to you, whether the size or, maybe the age of the other residents, like you'll know. I've had clients walk in and be like, this is not my place, or walk in someplace and be like, this feels like home. So there's no fee to tour a community. They want to have people come through tours. So just highly recommend it.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next slide, continuing the conversation about how to choose your community. Laura mentioned that there are situations in certain communities where you can get a portion of what you've paid in back once you vacate the unit. There are also communities, I'll give you an example, Asbury Methodist Village in Gaithersburg. They are a nonprofit. So if you start out in independent living, and have to move through the stages of care, and you turn 100 and you're still there and you're still kicking, if you qualify, the foundation will pick up the cost if you've run out of money at that point, and they will not kick you out. So that's the benefit of a nonprofit. Some are locally owned, some are corporate. And you want to think about, their priorities, their leadership philosophy, that kind of thing. And, another option is aging in place. If you really love your home and you feel and have the means to modify it to allow yourself to age in place, there are contractors who are certified by the National Association of Home Builders as certified aging in place specialists. So they know the types of modifications that you would need and could assist you with that so that you could stay in your home. And these are some of the websites that we use for references. There's the Medicare.gov where you can compare nursing homes, and there's a few other sites here that you'll see. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about some senior living truths. I think this is for you, Laura.
Okay. So basically, like, no two communities are alike. You can go on a tour and just know that the salespeople are salespeople. They are trying to sell you on the community. Do not be afraid to ask every question you have and make sure you feel that you've got a satisfactory answer. I say the marketing messages can be difficult to navigate because the marketing managers are like, Yahoo, look how much fun it will be to live here. We have everything you need. This is a serious decision from a financial perspective and for a life perspective. So we want to make sure that all your needs will be met. I don't know how many people want to move more than once at this point in life. Jan mentioned earlier, not all communities have availability all the time. That's very true. So getting on a wait list is so important if you've targeted a couple that you think would be a good fit for you. You may not get everything on your wish list. I mean, that's just a reality. You may not. We've had clients that sometimes in order to get into a community, they wanted a 2-bedroom. They've gone in at a 1-bedroom because that gets them in the door. They can, live in the 1-bedroom and then move to a 2-bedroom when it becomes available because they'll get priority off that wait list. So sometimes you have to have some flexibility. Market demand. That's going to determine your availability and pricing, but just know, like, this can also be a negotiation. There are newer communities opening that are looking to get people to join them. So the fees that they publish may not be the fees that you have to pay. There can be some negotiation. If you're looking at an established community that has a long wait list, that's not going to fly. You're going to have to go with their process. also sometimes with what we find with the CCRCs, let's say, for example, we have a client now, Asbury Methodist, who's moving into one of their villas. It's going to take a little time because Asbury Methodist is going to gut renovate that villa for them because the previous resident had lived there a very long time. So that's going to be at least 45 days while they are going through the whole process of, making selections, the client's making the selections, the contractor doing the work. So it's not always an immediate that you have to move in. There are buffers here. And that's also something that could be negotiated. So sometimes people get that call that, oh, the unit I wanted is available. Oh my gosh, I can't be ready to move in 30 days. So they panic. There's ways to work through that. And we're happy to have conversations because that's really a one-on-one with everyone. So I think we can go to the next.
Well, I just wanted to mention, you talked about moving into a smaller unit until the real size that you want becomes available because of the waiting list in so many of these communities. But another option that a lot of them will give you, if you're so lucky to get the chance, is say there's a 1-bedroom unit or a 2-bedroom next to a 1-bedroom, and they both happen to be available. You can negotiate to combine those 2 units and actually renovate it into one larger apartment. We just had someone do that at Ingleside at King Farm. So that is an option if the size you want isn't available and it so happens another one adjacent becomes available such that you can combine it and get the size you want. That's an option. Okay. So more senior living truths. So, let's face it, as we get older, our needs change, our bodies change, our circumstances change, relationships change. I got a call yesterday from a 78-year-old woman who's getting divorced after all these years. And, things happen. Your needs change. So you really need to think about life now, plus take into consideration what may occur in later in life. How are you feel good walking up steps now, but how about in 10 years? Are you still going to feel the same? And then let's talk about placement services. I'm sure everybody's heard about A Place for Mom. Their ads are all over the place. That's just one example of a placement service. And often they'll feature celebrity personalities offering to, quote, handpick the best senior living options for mom at no cost to you. Well, the reason they're doing it at no cost to you is because they get referral fees or commissions from the communities where they place people. So it's our opinion that these are simply lead generators for senior living communities and really don't give any personalized support or guidance. For instance, they're not going to go on tours with you. They won't help you with questions to ask. And they're going to hound you once you get on their mailing list. They will hound you for years to try to get you to work with them so they can make money off of you. We just don't feel certain that these placement services truly have your best interests at heart.
I was going to jump in and say, we found with our clients, their experience has been they sign up and they get an email list of options, something that you could do yourself on the internet. And then what happens is then they have to do all the research themselves. And it's really frustrating because like Jan said, you don't know the questions to ask. And they may not provide you all your options because they only provide options of the communities that will pay them a commission. So you're not getting the full picture. And we don't want to be too disparaging. I know we are being disparaging, but it just seems like there's better ways to do this.
Yeah. So they're saying it's at no cost to you, but you get what you pay for, right?
So if you can, if you're involved working with a geriatric care manager or an elder law attorney or a home care agency, those are also great people to ask if there is a local service that they trust that you could work with that will hold your hand through the process. And Stan said, we get what you pay for. So we've had some alarms go off about this recently for people and just their level of frustration. And again, they'll be calling you forever. Okay. So
that is true.
I think we kind of beat that a little bit. We can go on.
All right. So planning. We started off talking about how important it is to have a plan. And I think we're going to end with the same concept because this is so, so important. As a matter of fact, in our Downsizing Made Easy seminar that we teach, step 1 is to create a plan. So I can't emphasize that enough. So here's one of the myths that comes up. I've got plenty of time. There's lots of options to choose from when I'm ready. Well, case in point, we talked about the waiting lists at so many of these communities. When we were taking our course with the Seniors Real Estate Institute, we did a focus group with a group of folks that had already moved into Mapleside Park Place. And one of the gentlemen in the focus group said he put his name on the waiting list 10 years in advance. Talk about planning ahead. But he said he's glad he did because he got in when he wanted to and he got the unit he wanted. So, and basically the truth about that myth is that you have plenty of time to plan, is that, as your physical and mental health declines, your options will become fewer. Here's another one. In a crisis, there's no planning and little choice. Decisions are made in the moment and the selection process is often left to others. That is true. That's not a myth. Communities may have wait lists and the one you may want may not be available. So we've said that many times, and it's just almost critical in this area. There are a lot of new communities being built, but it can be tricky to get in the one you want. So
my mantra, Jan, is like, I want to make the decisions for myself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I love my loved ones in my family, but they don't always know my mind. And I think it's really important to be clear what you want. And then I love this slide because she looks so happy with her ice cream. But, happiness is a choice. Like make your choice, make your plan, make your choice, communicate it to your loved ones. And this can go smoothly. So you don't end up in a crisis situation someplace that you don't want to be.
Yeah. And I wanted to share a phrase I heard recently. Aging is not an option. Getting old is a choice. I thought that was pretty profound. I guess it's another way to say age is a state of mind. There was another question in the chat. Can you review the village concept? Do you want to take that, Laura?
Sure. And we can go to the next slide, Jessie. So the village concept, it really is neighbors helping neighbors. I don't know if you want to share where you live, and we kind of have a sense of where they are.
Yeah, or you could message us, Michael, if you'd like.
I think that's from Harvey.
Harvey, sorry.
So villages, like, for example, I live in the Burning Tree neighborhood. We have the Burning Tree Village. It's a volunteer organization. Neighbors help each other out, driving to medical appointments, picking up groceries, watching houses. It's just kind of helping people know who, Austin, Texas. Now, Harvey, I don't know that, but I can find out. Because it usually is very local to a neighborhood, like literally a neighborhood. So there is one downtown Bethesda, there's Friendship Heights. There's multiple ones in Chevy Chase. So it's throughout Montgomery County. We actually, Jan and I have done presentations for the Palisades Village in DC, helping people who are staying at home but want to figure out what to do with all their stuff. So you can just do a Google search. In our follow-up email, I can send you the link in Montgomery County to find out where they are, if that would be of help. But Austin, Texas, I'm sorry, I don't know.
We're licensed in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. And if any of you on this call are going to relocate to another state and purchase or look for a community there, we have connections with realtors who do what we do all over the country. So we're happy to connect you with an agent in whatever area you might be considering. We have a comment from Lou. The village results vary dramatically. The one in Rockville just folded. Oh, that's sad. Good results today may not stay that way.
Lou, that's a really good point because it's volunteers. So, we all have the best of intentions, but, some of these have evolved into pretty sophisticated organizations with paid employees, but they always start out as volunteers. I'm sorry to hear that about Rockville.
Yeah, me too. So we have also our monthly Downsizers Club that some of you may be interested. This is a free resource. We hold these meetings on Zoom the first Friday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern. And it's a small support group to discuss challenges and opportunities, even if you're a few years away from doing anything. We have loyal followers that come every month, and we assign homework to everybody each month, and we even give ourselves homework. So we experience the same thing as our members, and then we follow up the next month on the homework and see what you've accomplished. And we have had graduates. We've been doing the Downsizers Club now. It was a year in August. And we have had some graduates, and those are people who have gone through the downsizing process and actually sold their home and moved. And most of the people who join our club don't have a plan for moving yet, or they might know they're 5 years away. But we found with a couple of our graduates that being a member of the club and sharing the resources and talking to your peers about what you're going through sometimes accelerates the process and the decision making, because you feel more informed and able to make decisions like that. So that's, as I mentioned, the first Friday of every month. You can register for it at capitalseniorsolutions.com on our seminars page. And you'll also on that same page see a list of our upcoming seminars. We do have one this afternoon at Sunrise in Rockville on the topic of getting your affairs in order.
Tomorrow, Jan.
Oh, sorry, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow at 4:00 at Sunrise in Rockville. It's an hour-long presentation. I believe they're going to have some snacks and things for folks afterwards. If you'd like to attend, you can register on our webpage. And I think that's all we have. Laura, did you have anything else?
Oh, Lou just mentioned he was talking about the village for Twinbrook, not for Twinbrook, not all of Rockville, but for the Twinbrook community. That's
interesting.
Okay.
Oh, there was another question up here. Is there any kind of list by cost? No, unfortunately. Although Laura and I have documented all of our tours that we've taken since 2020, so we do have a lot of information about the different communities. And if you have questions about a particular one, certainly reach out to us. But there is no list by cost per se. Let's see what else we have in here.
You can also check your local government websites, like Montgomery County or Loudoun County, wherever you are, because oftentimes they will have resources in there if you need financial assistance for senior living. They'll give you options on what apartments are available, communities that are available that have that can help you.
Mm-hmm. Peter is asking, how do I get on a tour of a community? Do I just contact them individually? Peter, you can certainly do that. If you ultimately have a home to sell and would like Laura and I to assist you ultimately, whenever that might be, we're happy to arrange tours for you and actually accompany you and help you with the questions to ask. Because remember, like Laura said, those marketing directors and sales directors are salespeople, and they want you to think their community is the best thing since sliced bread. But we can help you be a little more discerning and figure out what questions to ask and what to look for. Michelle is asking, related to the cost issue, what's the current truth about availability of options for people who may not be in the high net worth bracket? Glad you brought that up. We talked about the Charles E. Smith communities earlier. They have all levels of care, starting with independent all the way through skilled nursing, but they do have a low income option there within their campus. So, and that's located in Rockville, if there's any interest there.
Yeah. And Michelle, also sometimes, this is why we always suggest you talk to your financial advisor, because sometimes people assume that this is not an option for them when it could be. Mm-hmm. So the best thing is to start out and figure out your financial piece first, and then look at what options are available. And as I mentioned, the Montgomery County website has got great information about lower cost housing options for seniors.
Yeah. And for those of you who may not have a financial advisor or may be interested in a change, we often work with a gentleman who specializes in pre and post retirement planning. And he does a lot of our Getting Your Affairs in Order seminars on our panel. So we'd be happy to connect you if there's interest there.
Yeah. So we'll follow up with an email to everyone and ask you for your input on and helping us to continue to do these seminars and provide information that you're looking for. So we'll ask you for input on today, and maybe if there's other topics you'd like us to cover. And then if you want the slides, let us know. But as Jan mentioned, within a short period of time, this recording will be on our website, that you can look at that too. So we'll share the website information also.
Yes. I think I might have put it in the chat, but let me go ahead and type it in real quick.
Anybody have any other questions? You can also unmute if you have a question. We'd love to hear some voices.
Yeah. You've been so quiet.
Thanks, Laura.
All right.
Somebody's clapping. Thank you. Very
Thank
nice.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, everyone. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day. Reach out if you need anything.
All right.
Thank you for being here.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.